So it's right at 7, and we are live. Welcome to Inside the Hot, Crazy Universal Matrix with Dana McClendon. I'm Steve Zellers. I'm going to be your host. I'm going to try to get Dana to answer some questions, things we've already talked about a little bit, but let you guys in the inside, see what's happened since this video has gone crazy viral. To my knowledge, it has over 9 million views. Is that right? Just the one posting of it.
The one place that we put it, the official, like the one place that we posted it, has either right at or just over 9 million, and it's been, but it's been ripped off and reposted millions and millions of times because I've found it all. Even now, people are sending me links to different versions of it that have been edited and posted somewhere.
Yeah, I noticed there are some other ones that have over 1 million views that are, it's not even your original post, because you did this with somebody that is Tactical Response, somebody you've done some videos with before.
Yeah, James Yeager runs Tactical Response, which is a firearms training school that's about an hour and a half from my house, and he's a friend and a client. And so we shot the video completely spontaneously. We did not. The day we shot it, I had no intention or idea that that's what was going to happen that day. I went down to Camden to go to court for someone else, and dropped by, saw my buddy James, and drew the Matrix for him. And he said, "That's funny. You should do a video." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "You want to do it?" I said, "Sure." And 10 minutes later, it was done. So
that was mid-2014, right?
It was July of 2014. Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, for a lot of people that don't know this or haven't seen a video that you put up since then, what are some of the things that are happening outside of the merchandise, which we're going to talk about a couple different times on this call? What are some other things that are happening?
I've got a movie in development with a major production company in Hollywood. That took several months to put together. My wife and I flew to Los Angeles in October and met with a number of people who had called me from major movie production companies that have made movies we have all seen. They were calling me, so I finally just scheduled several meetings and flew out there, and ended up meeting with some people that I think are super, super good at what they do, very creative. They very much wanted to do this. So there's a project underway now. I'm reading scripts from writers so that we can start to select a writing team for this project. It'll be a romantic comedy, along the lines of, I don't know. It'll be an R-rated romantic comedy, so a little bit raunchy, a little bit of fun, that kind of thing. So that's underway. No timeline for completion or anything like that. But I do get to participate in that creatively, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. We'll have to do a follow-up call so you can tell us how that's going as you get more details.
The other thing that's happened is I've started doing some live performances. I've done a couple of appearances at a local comedy club, and following that, I'm now negotiating to create a full-length show, a full-length kind of a one-man show, not exactly stand-up, but more of a theatrical show, not musical or anything like that. Just with maybe some videos or some PowerPoints or some music or something like that brought into it. So I'll be back in Los Angeles soon to work on that project.
Cool. So this is going to be an hour long or 45 minutes, because your set that you did as a stand-up was only about, what, 7 minutes maybe?
Yeah, I just did the Matrix. I just did the Matrix live, and it's about 10 minutes when I do that with the woman one, the husband's own one. That's about 10 minutes. But since this happened, I've sort of begun to sketch out additional material, and they want to work with me and put some professional writers on it. And put together a one-man show that would be in the hour, 15, hour and a half range for a tour.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I can see your art has already gotten really professional. I don't know if everybody has seen this, but I'll put up a little bit later. We'll put up your Universal Hot Crazy Matrix store, where you've got the unicorn search and retrieval team,
Yeah.
and those other ideas, and it just keeps going. You were talking about a meeting that you had today to add some more products to that.
Yeah, we've been selling a lot of shirts. The shirts have done really well. Guys love the Universal Search and Rescue, the Unicorn Search and Rescue team shirts. Guys have really been fond of those. We've sold a ton of the certified unicorn shirts as well. We've had a few others. I've got a hoodie out now that's the theme is Friday Night Plan, and it has a cheeseburger here, a unicorn here, and a beer here. So that, if you can put all three of those things in your Friday night, then you're doing pretty well. So, and yeah, I'm working with some professional graphic artists and fulfillment guys on that. So that's been, every time I turn around and I think, well, okay, surely this thing has run its course, something else happens that makes it bigger, not smaller.
Well, so let's go back a little bit. For people who are on this call who maybe don't know this, you're actually a lawyer in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I live in Franklin, Tennessee, and I've been a practicing lawyer for 21 years. I do a lot of criminal defense, and I do a lot of domestic work, divorce, custody, that kind of thing. So the comedy truth that I talk about is all derived from being a lawyer for 2 decades and running across every brand of crazy you can imagine. And I've also been married for 23 years, and my wife contributes to the comedy as well. Just because if you've been married for any length of time, you'll know what it's like to have somebody that knows you better than anyone else tell you how life really is. So she's been a lot of fun with this thing too.
Well, yeah, your spouse is going to hold up the mirror to you and say, now you may think this, but this is how I'm experiencing you.
Yeah. We jokingly say that her job is to bust the bubble that sometimes forms in my head and keep me real. So she's been a lot of fun. She's been a real good sport about this.
Well, so now when you shot the video, she didn't know anything about it until after it was viral, and then you watched it with her, right?
Yeah, what happened was I'd never even shown her the Matrix. The Matrix was just something that I'd do to kill time, like if I was waiting at the courthouse with a client or something like that, or if I was somewhere with somebody and we had a few minutes, I'd be like, hey, let me show you something. I'd draw it for them, and everybody I ever showed it to thought it was funny, but the occasion to show her just never arose. I don't know why. It wasn't like I was trying to conceal it or anything. It's just it never happened. And then I went to Colorado this summer with my son and 10 of his buddies and their dads, and we were out there for a week, and I showed all of them, and they all thought it was hilarious. And all these guys were getting ready to go to college, so they all thought it was hilarious and appropriate and necessary to know. And so I shot the video this summer, and James put it up on his channel, and James has about, I don't know, 175 or 180,000 subscribers, but most of those guys are dudes who are like into shooting, or they're soldiers, or they're cops, or they're preppers, or that kind of culture. And when we put it up, I thought maybe 5,000 of those guys would see it, and within a week it was like 100,000. And every day I'd get up, it was just more and more and more. And then I started getting phone calls from radio stations and stuff. And my older son, before he went to college one day, we were all home hanging out in the family room, and he says to me, hey, Dad, how's your video doing? And my wife says, video? What video? And I said, well, you see, what had happened was, so we watched it together. She had never seen it, and I think at first she was a little horrified. She was kind of like, you can't put this on the internet. And I said, well, it's done. In addition to being a lawyer, I'm also a city official. I'm an elected official here in Franklin. I've been on the city council for 17 years. So in the town that we live in, there's about 60,000 people, and I'm fairly well known. Like if I go out in public, people know who I am often. So she was kind of horrified that I had made this video, and then we got to the end of it, and she just looked at me and she said, "You are an idiot." And we laughed, and then she realized, and she said, "But I'm a unicorn." So, like I said, she's been a good sport. It hasn't always been easy because there have been people that were really mad. There was a really kind of a hit piece on a local news channel here that was, they really went out of their way to make it look awful. And I got a couple of calls from local people that were mad and said I had embarrassed the city and this kind of stuff. But for the most part, overwhelmingly, people realize that it's funny, and it's funny because there's some truth to it. So it's been okay.
Well, the issues around dating are many, and if you listen to any stand-up, which you're starting to get into, and we're going to talk about that in a second, they always have dating material. Even if they're married, they have dating material in their stuff because it is a funny subject, and sometimes if you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has experienced relationship issues. And anyone old enough to go to a comedy club is either there with a date, or married and divorced. Everybody's kind of been through it, and it's something that everyone can relate to. The stages of relationships, and sometimes the rough spots and the funny things that happen with someone that you get naked with and all that kind of stuff. Everybody's experienced that. So it's if I were to sit around and talk about the humor of jiu-jitsu, only a jiu-jitsu nerd would get that. But if I talk about my wife or my girlfriend or the ex-girlfriend or the ex-wife or whatever, everybody's got a feeling for that.
So you've been married over 20 years.
Yeah.
You agree with me, there's a big difference between dating and a relationship.
Sure. I wouldn't even know what a date is anymore. I got married in 1992, so I see dating vicariously through clients who are, their legal trouble stems from their troubled relationship, or they're about to go back out into the dating world being divorced for the first time. I have many clients who, they come to me, they get divorced, and the next thing they know, they're 40 years old and going on a date for the first time in 20 years. So that's how I experience dating.
That's actually, most of my clients are, I'm going to say my average person is 40 plus years old, divorced at least once, 2 kids, and they haven't dated since the 1980s.
Yeah. Well, if my wife ever gets tired of me, that'll be me. So.
Well, we'll stay in touch for that. I hope that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, let's hope. She's sitting within earshot, so let's hope that doesn't happen.
All right. Well, let's shift gears then. You're getting a lot of good responses from people, and they're liking the video and they're making good comments. I'm noticing those are coming mostly from men. What kind of bad experiences have you had, both live and online, from women who don't exactly love this?
If I'm honest about it, I think what has been funny is I've read, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, because when it blew up, I couldn't help it. Like, I would just Google myself, and I would turn up on, like, Jezebel or some of these other predominantly female-oriented websites, and man, I guess it's no surprise, but like, if I found me on Break.com or Bro Bible or whatever, it was mostly dudes, and mostly dudes laughing about it like you would, in a locker room joke scenario. When I found myself on Jezebel or Huffington Post, they hated it. But many of the comments, I'm not professionally trained in mental health or anything like that, but I think a lot of the comments that were negative were people that were kind of projecting, because they would say things like, how dare you judge women based upon how they look? You're fat and you're ugly and you're stupid. And so I'd read those things and I'd kind of go, you're mad at me because I made a chart about women generally, and then you called me individually fat, ugly, stupid, short, bald, whatever. And so it kind of got comical that, and the ones who seem to react the strongest, let's just say they may not be unicorns.
Okay, they might be in the no-go zone.
I didn't do any scientific analysis, but the more they hated me, it seemed like most of the time I would look at them, and because I'd see them. Sometimes it would be pictures associated with their comments, and not unfrequently it was someone that I didn't find attractive who was most upset. But that's not scientific.
Which is fair. Some of these questions you're answering like a lawyer. I think you're being really careful with your words here, and that's fine.
I do believe this, okay? In all seriousness, for everybody, there's somebody for you. For everybody, there's your version or your vision of what's beautiful. I might like, brunettes that are 5'7". You might like blondes that are 5 feet, okay? Another guy might like Asian girls only. So, I'm not trying to make women conform to one ideal of beauty. Every individual person gets to pick what they look at and think is attractive to them. So that's where I'm going to go with that.
All right, that's cool, because if we really break it down, looks are only how molecules bounce off of the light, right? The light bouncing off of our molecules is what our looks are, and some people like it, some people are not going to like it, and that's fine either way.
Yeah, that's for sure. Everybody gets to pick what they like.
So now, have you had any in person, like at the supermarket? Has anybody come up to you and had like a bad reaction?
Not. Maybe one time I was at the courthouse, and there's a lady who works at the clerk's office, and most of the ladies there, and this is a place I go almost every day for the last 20 years, so they know me. Most of them thought it was funny, and one of them was very blunt that she didn't think it was funny at all. But that is really in person. That's really been it. I think most people, if they didn't like it, they've just avoided it with me or not said anything about it to me. I did have, obviously online where you have the anonymity and the distance factor, people have been ruthless when they wanted to be. I did get a couple of rather hysterical phone calls shortly after that local news piece. One lady called me and she was just beside herself. She was almost stammering, and she said, "I want to know what you're going to do about this video." And I said, "What do you mean, what I'm going to do about it?" And she said, "Well, are you going to disavow it and take it down and apologize for it?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, I just want you to take responsibility for it." And I said, "At the beginning of the video, I said my name. What do you mean take responsibility for it?" And she was irate. And I finally said, "Ma'am, what exactly did you think was going to happen when you called me?" And yeah, and she stammered on some more, and I said, "Look, I said there's nothing I'm going to be able to say that's going to make you happy, so let's just hang up and go on our way, okay?" And she's probably the kind of person that makes that kind of phone call once a week to someone. So I'm going to go on with my life, and she can go on, ranting about something else next week.
Well, she probably calls Obama and complains about the health care.
So. I get that's the other thing I've learned is that I didn't realize this, but there are people that are born blind, and there are people that are born deaf, and there are people that are born, I guess, without the sense of taste. It turns out that there's a percentage of the human race that is born with absolutely no sense of humor. And even when you point at something and say 95% of the people on the planet that have seen this think this is funny, they go, "I don't get it. I don't think it's funny." And I've asked those people sometimes, online, "What do you think is funny?" "Well, I don't know, but this isn't."
Well, so just to follow up on that, and we'll move on to something else here in a minute, but I think the proof that it's supposed to be funny is that you have a Facebook page now that says you're an entertainer and you're starting to do stand-up, and you're working on a movie. That's entertainment.
Right. Well, and you know, at the beginning of the video, if you saw the full-length version, because we did not rehearse that, we did not script that, we did not write any of it. That was just me and a friend of mine who spontaneously decided to do a video, and he introduces me as the terrorist mouthpiece, which goes back to another joke between me and him, but he introduces me as the terrorist mouthpiece, and then I say, yes, I'm the consigliere to the Camden Mafia. Clearly, we are kidding around. I mean, I did everything except hold up a sign that said, "What follows is supposed to be funny." So some people, I think some people just have decided that there are certain things off limits, and you can't talk about them. And I think, like you said earlier, if there's something, if you don't laugh about it, you're going to cry. And sometimes I think humor is the best way to discuss otherwise difficult subjects. I mean, when I do the show, when I write this full-length show, my aspiration for that is to do a show that guys and girls can come to together and then leave having had a good time. And then if something that I said during the show struck one of them as something that maybe they want to talk about in their relationship, the show will provide them kind of a point of departure for that conversation that they might have otherwise had a hard time bringing up. I mean, if you leave the show and you say, hey, that part about where he talked about, only having sex once every 6 weeks, that was pretty funny, wasn't it? It might be something like that where somebody could bring something up in the context of a funny show and actually have a conversation that improved their life. So when I'm writing the show and doing that, I'm going to try to accomplish that.
Yeah, that is always a part of how I try to approach dating too, because people have these programs running. It's like, this is what I think, and there's nothing different than possibly what I think. But the truth is, everyone has a different experience in their life, and everyone is everyone else's teacher. Instead of, hey, you're wrong because I don't agree with what you said, and I'm looking for evidence to prove myself right, how about you could be right about that because that's your experience.
Yeah, the older I get, the more like that I become, and the more like that I try to become. When you're young and you think you know everything, you're kind of a little bit more inclined to be closed-minded, I think. And the older you get, and I think you do learn from your own experiences and from observation, and I think you become a little bit more tolerant, or at least I hope you do.
So we started talking a little bit about some of the responses you've got. There are a lot of videos that women have made in response to this. Have you watched many of those?
I've probably seen about 15 or 20. What I thought was funny about some of those was some of those women are quite nice-looking women, and they got all kinds of dolled up and did the video. I mean, like, there's some that somebody, that they just kind of did it. You can tell they just kind of did it in whatever they were wearing. But there were a few that really went to some length. They got props, so they got cocktail dresses on, they did their makeup, they did the whole thing. And there were a few that I thought were really cleverly done. Some that I thought were really good.
Yeah, and they changed your matrix, right? One of them is the money pig matrix.
Yeah.
One of them is the hot, emotional, unavailable was one.
Yeah,
emotionally unavailable.
I thought that was a good one.
That was the one where the woman got really dressed up, and she's like a 9 on just about anybody's scale, and she's actually an actress. I don't know if you looked that up.
Yeah. I've kept up with her on Facebook a little bit, if it's the one I'm thinking of. She's done some other videos that are comedy. She's done a few other videos, if it's the same one that I'm talking about. I forget her name.
Yeah, it's not coming to me, but she's blonde and pretty statuesque. I think she's been in a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So I'm actually, if you guys are live on the call, there's a chat box over to your right, and you can type things in there. If you have a question you want to ask Dana, go ahead and put it over there on the right. One of the things that
there's one chat here that says I'd hate to spend any time with someone who gets mad about it. I've had countless guys tell me that when they're going on a date, with a girl that they haven't seen often or maybe ever, that they bring this up and show them. And if she doesn't think this is funny, they're done. Like they don't want to go any further down the road, because, and I get it, because life's too short to be spending it with someone that you're going to have to like conceal what you think is funny to appease them. And that's not to say anybody's right or wrong, but guys have told me that, man, you changed the game, because now I just show them this video, and if they don't think it's funny, then I know we're not going anywhere.
What if they pretend like it's funny, and then later you find out they were really offended?
I'm going to recommend honesty as the best policy for dating. If you deceive someone into a relationship, eventually that's going to get revealed.
Well, so you've been married for 20 plus years. You say 22, 23?
23.
And your wife is officially unicorn number 00001?
That's her.
And so does she have any desire to lead a unicorn movement for other women?
I don't know. I haven't asked her that. I don't know. We could, aim?
No.
She says no.
Every man has his own unicorn.
She says everybody gets to pick their own unicorn.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's part of my mission. I'm actually, if you see my little banner above my head, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm actually trying to help people become those unicorns, both male and female, because it's not just a female-only unicorn situation.
That's right.
You have to be that person. If you want to find that person, you've got to, without being too California crazy here, you have to vibrate who you were born to be in order to attract the right people to yourself, and it naturally repels the wrong people.
That's right. I believe that. I think that as I said, I've been practicing law for a long time, and I've run across a lot of people in great distress. No one ever calls me and says, hey, my life is great, I just wanted to hire a lawyer. Everybody that calls me is calling me because there's a crisis going on. So I see people sometimes at their worst. And one thing I've noticed is that the happiest people that I deal with are being who they are. And the most miserable people that I deal with are being something that they think they should be, which isn't what they are. Like either their parents have really carved out a spot and tried to cram them into it, or they're living a lie of some kind or another. And I agree with you. I think if you start out by being what you are, you're much more likely to find a person who likes that. And the other thing I've told people along the way since all this came out was that you shouldn't. I posted something like this on my page the other day that if you're looking for a unicorn, great, go find it, but be sure that you're not going to ask anything of the unicorn that you wouldn't be willing to do for yourself. So if, for example, just like fitness, if you're trying to find a girl who's like supremely fit, then I'm going to recommend that you kind of go in that direction and get yourself fit as well. Don't ask anything of someone else that you're not willing to do yourself.
But according to the video, though, if you have enough money, you really don't have to do the fitness.
Well, there are, I think, I guess there's the gold digger phenomenon, of course, where that can happen. I'm not sure how many of those people wind up sincerely and genuinely happy for long, but I'll let them decide that.
Well, so we know kind of what some of the next things are, and you've got like professional writers, you've got merchandise now, which I'll show that site here in a minute. But what kind of other things do you see out on the horizon? You've got a kind of a planning team on this now. Are you going to still be able to be a lawyer after this?
The goal for me is to put myself in a position where I can make the decision to leave the practice of law full-time and do this. I've been practicing for 20-something years, and it's, we live comfortably, and I don't have to go out in 10-degree weather and work outside or do anything physically difficult, but it's a grind. It's like anything else, I guess. After 20 years, maybe if there's another pathway for me to go, then I'll do that. The other thing is that I'm 47, and since they took me to a room and put me in it, kindergarten or whatever, I've always been walking into rooms and making everyone in the room laugh. And if they're willing to pay me to do that now, then I'm okay with that. So
That simplifies. I think that simplifies your life because then you only have the one role is to make people laugh.
yeah, and you know, it's funny because I've always done it. I've always been the class clown, and now I'm the courthouse clown, and so it's always come naturally to me to do that. And somebody asked me if I was nervous about going on the stage and doing the bit in front of 300 people, and the answer was no, I wasn't that nervous at all because, for one reason, everyone in that room had paid money to be there to be made to laugh. They were predisposed to be entertained. They had made a choice about what to do with their time and their money, and that was laugh. So, you know, it was a little different because now they handed me a microphone and said, "Okay, funny man, make them laugh." But they were there to laugh. You know, it wasn't like I went to some angry place and tried to turn the whole mood of the room around. They were there to laugh. So
they also have a 2-drink minimum there at those places, so you got that help.
Yeah, true story. So
now, where were you positioned in a lineup of comedians? Were you like a headliner? Did they use your name, or were you like just somewhere towards the beginning?
To be honest with you, I don't drink and I don't go out, so I didn't know all this, but I'm learning as I go. The first time I did it, the headliners were the Reformed Whores. It's 2 women that are hilarious. They sing funny songs that they've written and do little bits on the side. They're really funny. They were the headliner, and I performed not immediately before them, but before that. So there were like 3, I guess. What do they call that? The not the MC, but I forget what the term is. But I was one of the several warm-up acts. And then the next time I performed it ahead of Lavelle Crawford, who's a big-time comedian.
Oh yeah, he was on The Last Comic Standing.
Yeah, and he is so funny. He has a guy that tours with him, so I went on. The guy that tours with him opened the show. Then I went on. Then the other guy came back for a few minutes, and then Lavelle came on. And Lavelle does a set that's like an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what kind of mood he's in. And he's really funny. If you get the chance to see Lavelle Crawford, you should go see him for sure.
All right. Well, and I think that's where you're headed too. You're going to have your own act, and it may even be its own show, but you'll have warm-up acts before you, and then you'll be the one who finishes the show.
Eventually, that's the plan.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
We had a question over here on the side. Now, I'm not sure if it's a question as much as a comment, but this guy, Mark, is saying that he actually did show a girl the video on a first date. She didn't laugh, and needless to say, there was no second date.
You got to go with your instincts on that one. You know, if you think it's funny and she is really unhappy about it, you guys are probably going to find a lot of other things that you don't agree upon, and that is not necessarily fatal to a relationship, but it may not be a good sign for you.
Well, having a lot of things in common is great, but I think it's those long-term things you want to find in common that are like, you know, where you want to end up. Are you a spender or saver? What kind of vacations do you like to have? When do you want to have those kids? And how are we going to raise them when we have those kids? Those are the things you want to get along about, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can, you know, look there, and you also need to know what are you prepared to really make a stand about. I remember going to my great uncle's 60th wedding anniversary party, and his name was Unc, and I said, Unc, what is the secret? You've been married 60 years. What's the secret? He said, well, Mabel and I decided that I would make all the big decisions and she would make all the little ones. I said, okay, how'd that work out for you? He goes, 60 years later, I cannot wait to make that first big decision.
So they're all small ones as far as he's concerned.
So I think part of what you have to do is agree upon the big things and then know which things are not worth arguing about. You know, like, you know, what color is the wall? Do you care? I mean, if you don't care, then don't argue about that.
Well, I think now, are you in your kitchen? Can I ask about this thing above your head?
Yes.
So sus. I'm so mad right now. Please say that I said something. Please say that I said something.
Yeah, it's just a little curtain thing hanging there, you know.
It's in the corner of our
I'm in the
kitchen
breakfast
that
room in the
nobody's-
kitchen, yeah.
Yes. That
Am I-
nobody sees.
Am I getting you in trouble right now?
You say that I'm embarrassed that I
It may be gone tomorrow now. I don't know.
I'm so
Or just-
embarrassed.
We'll do a follow-up and see if it's still there.
Okay.
I just figured it was one of those small decisions that you did not make.
I didn't argue about it. If you had asked me before
It's been
you,
here for 15
if you had asked me about it before before you pointed it out, I could not have described it to
It's
you.
been there for 15 years.
That is awesome.
I promise you, I couldn't have told you what it was.
That is awesome. So we don't know time frames on a movie. We do know that you've got professional writers plus yourself and other people on your team, kind of a creative team, working on new merchandise as well as your stand-up that's going to be 45 minutes to an hour probably.
Yeah, that'll be, and those are kind of running parallel and simultaneously. So, if I go and do a tour of shows, that could happen sometime this year. We may not get, depending, the movie thing is so many things, like depending upon the director. If if the director we want is available, but not until next June, then, how much do you want? Are you willing to wait? So there's a whole lot of who knows what the timeline of that is. There's a lot of stuff that has to fall into place for that.
So if this really goes this big, are you going to move to LA?
I can't see myself doing that anytime soon. My younger son is a sophomore in high school. He has never lived anywhere but this house. So I wouldn't move anywhere at least until both my sons are off in college. And even then, I don't know how much money it would take to get me to move to Los Angeles, but a lot.
Well, somebody asked about new material, so I wanted to answer that question for them because I think we covered that a little bit earlier in the call. But one other question I have too is, have you started to write another video? Have you thought, as a follow-on to that? Because I saw there was a part 2, and it was you telling some of the things that had happened since. But have you thought about, like a different kind of Matrix or?
Yeah. For sure. I've got 2 more in my head. Honestly, I know that I caught lightning in a bottle on the first one. And so the next one I want to be really good. I may never have another viral video, but I'm hopeful that if I drop another one, it'll at least get a lot of looks. I don't know that there's any way to know, if you could ever do that again. But I've got one written in my head. Actually, I've got the next 2 written in my head. And now it's kind of a production quality and getting it just right. And now I've got other people invested in me. So the first one was just me doing something spontaneously with nothing at stake. Now there are people who are counting on me to make good decisions and good product. So I kind of have to. I'm not contractually obligated, but I feel morally obligated to the people that I'm working with to make sure that they would be happy with it as well. So some of that's production values and probably shooting it a little bit more professionally than the first one and that kind of thing. But yeah, I've got some more, and that's just a question of sitting down with some of the writers and videographers and stuff like that and getting it exactly right.
So let's talk about when you met your wife, because obviously she was really attracted to you, and you were really attracted to her, but you didn't have this scale in your head when you first started dating her, because you were how old?
When we met, I was 18 and she was 17.
And so you weren't thinking, okay, she's +8 or more, and you weren't measuring this stuff.
Oh, I knew she was hot, but no, I didn't have the Matrix.
So say that. It's in the room.
No, I didn't have this. this is not the kind of thing that a young man could have created, I don't think. I think this is the kind of thing that you have to live a little bit to understand.
Well, and that is the thing, is there's so much truth in it. I actually have shown this to someone who's way above the crazy line, and they think it's funny too.
Yeah, well, one of the shirts that we're coming out with by demand is the Danger Zone shirt. I've had Redheaded Tiffany's tell me, Facebook me, and say, when are you going to release a Danger Zone shirt? I want one. And, you know, I've had a couple of hairdressers say the same thing. Oh, I think your video is hilarious, and I want one for work. So the next shirt, we've got 2 that we're designing right now, and one of them's going to be a Danger Zone shirt for women. So if you see a girl walking around with a Danger Zone shirt on, she's trying to tell you something.
Right, like if you cross her, she does have that knife pointed down.
Yeah, that graphic was actually a guy named Marcus Allen who does it for fun, he did some amazing stuff and just sent it to me. So, God bless Marcus Allen.
That's cool. So and it's in your store, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a link to the store here in the comments, so that anybody that wants to go check that out can go do it. And for anybody watching this video later, I'll just say it. It's hotcrazy.spinshop.com.
Yeah, and you can also get their hotcrazymerchandise.com.
Yeah, that redirects to the same place.
Yeah.
And there's some really good shirts on there. I'm definitely going to be getting the black one that has the Matrix on it, because it's totally a conversation piece.
Oh, yeah.
Even if somebody didn't like the video, you have a lot to talk about. It's like, well, so what bothers you about it? What do you not like? What do you?
Right.
If you did like something about it, what part did you like?
Yeah, and you know the thing that I've been on national television with this several times, and several times that's happened, there's been a lady commentator, interviewer, or whatever on the panel. And they tended to take the position, you know, defending women and finding it offensive a little bit. You know, and I just told them, I said, look, I put hot crazy. I could have put attractive and left it at whatever qualities you want to put. But for shorthand, let's call it hot crazy. You know, so if somebody gets upset, you know, I've usually just told them, look, you know, whether you like it or not, this is science. Guys want to know, how hot is she and how crazy is she? You know, and that's the first 2 things that if I were to tell you, hey, I got this girl I want to introduce you to, you'd be like, what does she look like? Well, is that wrong? No, that's just the way we are. And if I said she's beautiful, here's a picture, and you said she is beautiful, is she nuts? That's your next question. So, I mean, and if there have been 25, or I don't know, 20 or 30 million people have seen this video. You want to know how many of them have disproved it? None.
I would agree with that. And one of the things that I'm teaching down in Dallas is those chemicals that we release. It's actually us doing it, the dopamine and serotonin. The other person is just stimulus. We're actually releasing our own chemicals. So that's attraction. It's not, the other person doesn't force you to release chemicals into your own body.
Well, I do think there's you know, the other thing that I've told people in divorce scenarios and everything else is, look, you and me and my wife sitting over there, we are largely the same creatures that were walking the earth 10,000 years ago, before electricity, before civilization, before all of that. We have not, on the evolutionary scale, moved very much in 10,000 years. But on the technology scale, we have advanced in huge quantum immeasurable leaps. You know, how long ago would it have been that you and I couldn't have had this conversation this way? 5 years, 10 years ago? This couldn't have happened.
Google Hangouts, less than 3.
Okay, so, you know, or even Skype or any of that. So we're the same human beings biologically, chemically, walking around as we were when it was a struggle to survive. 10,000 years ago, men and women partnered up in part to survive. Well, for the most part, if you're living in Dallas, Texas, or Franklin, Tennessee, survival is not really at stake every day. Comfort, maybe. The degree of comfort, sure. But are you going to die because you didn't eat for 3 weeks? Probably not. Are you going to die because of dysentery in the water? Probably not in Dallas, Texas, or Franklin, Tennessee. So now we have all these other things that occupy our time. But when you meet another human being, you are meeting the same human being as you would have met 10,000 years ago. Now it's just all confused and muddled with technology and constant saturation of news and electronics and things with batteries and all that. So it's complicated. But the one-on-one physical relationship is about as simple as it ever was.
Mm-hmm. And people have communication skills. I think there are a lot of, depends on who you talk to, I don't want to scare anybody, but language skills have been around about 40 to 45,000 years. And people are at various levels of being able to communicate well. I mean, we are better scaped, let's call it. You know, we're better manicured, but we are the same people.
Yeah, well, and 90% or more, I don't know, pick a number, but a huge percentage of communication has nothing to do with the word you picked. It has to do with the movements of your body, the facial features. I mean, you don't need to hear a single word said to be able to look at a person, if you have reasonably good skills, to look at a person and know whether they are happy or angry or scared or, you know, or timid or what have you. They don't need to say a word for you to know that already. You know, how many times have you walked into a room and been able to interpret the mood of the room immediately before anyone said a word?
Exactly. So, there's so much nonverbal. I mean, there's tone, pitch, inflection of your voice, everything you're doing with your body, but the words we choose, I think I've seen this, it's only like 7% of actual communication is the words. So we didn't say any.
Human relations, I think you got to be tuned into that.
Exactly. So your wife has a comment on here. I think your wife's actually on here, and she's saying that, oh my gosh, he has the matrix chart in our dining room. Why is he showing my window treatments?
Because the answer to that, Amy, is because I'm a dude and I didn't think about the window treatments.
Oh man, this is awesome. So hey, we promised that we were going inside the Hot Crazy Matrix tonight, and we did.
Yeah, you got in my house.
Yeah, I think we got inside the kitchen here.
Yeah.
So what is a question that you have not been asked on television that you would like to answer?
Oh wow. I don't know.
Well, so I think there's a lot of leading questions. They're like, oh, well, you know, it's an internet phenomenon. It's probably going to become a meme before you know it, where people will go in and they'll type their own words above your head and below you.
Someone did that. They put me doing that maneuver right there, and they put that moment when you realize she's in the no-go zone. There were some, and then another guy. There have been some pretty good ones posted up around the internet. The funniest comment that I saw ever anywhere was on a site called World Star Hip Hop, and I had never seen that site before. My son told me that I was on it, and there was a comment on there that said, and I'll paraphrase it. But the comment was, underneath the video, it said, all my homies in Chicago got their whole hand wrapped around a pencil taking notes on this. Which, that's a loose translation of what was said, but
I'm going to reserve my judgment on that and not get myself in trouble. I'm glad they got pencils, though, and they're using them.
Yeah. I don't know. What has somebody not asked me that I would like? That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that.
Well, I'll let you think about it, and I'll ask you a different question.
Okay.
Can this video help change the dating world?
I've been told that it already has. Like so many guys have told me, and guys that I know in person, and guys that have just come to me on Facebook or wherever and said, man, everything in that video I kind of knew, but I'd never had it laid out in a way that really like made sense. And so, you know, like there it is. Like everything, and you know, we put on the video, this is everything a man needs to know about a woman in 7 minutes. If I could only give my son 7 minutes of instruction, it would be this. You know, so I think what I did was I kind of tapped into. I think kind of what I did here was I told the whole world what's going on in a lot of men's minds that they had never articulated, and so the men recognized it as thoughts that they had, and women kind of went, what? You know, and then like James's wife told me, she said, I was watching that video and I so wanted to hate it, but I couldn't because it was true. So.
Well, and I think too, one of the biggest points of contention that women have with this video is that you start the crazy scale at 4.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, there's some comedic license going on there. Of course, there's degrees of that, but I mean that's still to some extent. I kind of played on the shop worn joke that all women are crazy. So, you know, I borrowed liberally from there's no such thing as a new story. You know, I mean, until we find life in the universe somewhere else, there's really no new story. And even then, we've made it up. So, you know, I borrowed liberally from old jokes.
So, have people asked you about the Barney Stinson thing, the guy from the When I Met My Mother?
Yeah, you know, I honestly don't remember ever seeing that episode. I've seen it since, and my response to that was that two things. One, Barney Stinson did not invent the Matrix any more than I did. He made it popular. He put it on television first, maybe, but the first Matrix was found on a wall in what is now Germany, and it was carved there by a caveman who was the first guy to ever have a piece of charcoal in a cave and have to wrestle with which of two women to date. And then I've said that, you know, Stinson gave you an abacus. I gave you a microchip processor. You know, his line was the Vicky Mendoza line, and it was about one girl. This is useful for all. So, yep. And it's a lot more detailed and advanced. So I've moved. If Stinson, you know, created the abacus, I've evolved that to full-blown microchip processor.
I would agree. You've got a serious calculator in here as far as people using it. And I looked at that clip as I was getting ready to talk to you, and it was basically saying, if you're gonna be this crazy, you better be that hot.
Right. Yeah. Which, you know, I mean, there's. I disagree a little bit. I think in the long run, most dudes are going to be happier with a chick who's way hotter than crazy. You know, if you notice, there are only 2 zones, well, maybe 3. There are only 3 zones in the Matrix that don't touch the crazy line: the wife zone, the unicorn zone, and the tranny zone. Every other zone borders the crazy line. I think the further you get away from that, the better.
Well, I think maybe more peace.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're talking about theoretically the rest of your life. Do you want to constantly be bumping up on the crazy line? I guess that's up to you. You know, yeah. The danger zone is like Disneyland. It's fun to go there for a day, but you don't live there. Eventually, you go home.
Yeah, it's like being in Vegas any longer than 3 days.
Yeah, you should leave. It's not real. It's not a real place. You don't want to be there forever. Go see whatever you can see, and then leave. Plus, by and large, dudes are creatures of habit and a little bit lazy. You know, we want a sure thing that doesn't take a lot of effort. And crazy creates drama, and drama requires effort to manage. And dudes don't want anything to do with that. Dudes want a reasonably sure thing that is, you know, not insane. Oh, there's the 18-year-old calling.
Oh, and they like certainty, right? You want to be sure what you've got there, and if it's too crazy, then it just moves around too much.
Yeah, well, the other thing is humans, as a rule, prefer predictability. So if someone is a different person every day, and I used to go in front of a judge who was like this. I mean, you never knew. You'd walk in on Monday and you'd have one person, and maybe by the end of the day you'd have a totally different person. That's impossible. Just be something every day, and then if I like it, I'll hang around, and if I don't like it, I'll move on.
So we're two guys talking here. One of the things that I end up teaching a lot is men are not unhairy women for women to change into women, and women are not unhairy men that need to be changed into men. We have to appreciate the differences.
Right. Yeah. Well, men, it's said often that men marry women thinking the woman will never change, and women marry men thinking that they can change him to what they want. I tell women all the time, especially the ones that I'm setting free, you know, like in a divorce, I tell them all the time, look, when you do this again, you need to understand something. To the ladies of the world, when you're dating, leading up to that moment in time that you agree to have sex with him, that is his A game. That is the best he can do. He's pulling out all the stops. That's it. Okay?
It never gets better.
It does not get better. He's doing everything right that he knows how to do. He's shaving, he's dressing right, he's whatever it is he thinks he can do well, he's doing it. So if you have sex with him thinking this guy's close to perfect for me, if only he would then become this, and this, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's doing everything he can.
Well, and while we're talking about physical stuff, is it possible to do that too early?
Oh, sure. I think so. I mean, understand that there's a big difference between lust and love. You know, you can lust after someone from across the room, and that's frequently what happens. But that's going to wear off. You know, that's going to last days, weeks, months, perhaps. After that, what do you have? Well, it's then that you better have some things that you can talk about, some things that you can do together, and some kind of understanding of how this is going to work. You know, I mean, if you're a beach person and you hate going to the mountains, that's probably a good thing to know about, you know, her, that she hates the beach. So, you know, you're not going to know that when you're just lusting after someone in the first couple of weeks or months even.
That's true. Maybe we got a new matrix starting here, like how much you are attracted to them and how soon the sex happens, and then what happens after that.
Yeah, I have told people that that my suggestion for a second date is the 10-question game. It's not really a game, but when I set people free, men and women, to go back into the dating world, you know, 30 years old, 40 years old, whatever, I tell them, look, your first date, figure that out, whatever it is, go to dinner, meet for coffee, whatever that's going to be. If you like that person enough after the first date to do that again, then, and this is not what I would suggest for an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old, but if you've been around for a while and you're 30-something, 40-something, when you ask that person for a second date, I would say this: propose to that person that you both bring 10 questions, and that those 10 questions be whatever you want. Agree in advance that you can ask any question you want. And the rules are, you got 10 questions. She'll ask you 10, you'll ask her 10. Maybe one after the other. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to answer. But if you answer, it has to be the complete, unvarnished, total truth. Ugly as it may be, it has to be the truth. And you can leave whenever you want. So if you get to the if you think about what 10 questions that you might like to ask, I think you can get some deal breakers out of the way, and then if you both ask your 10 questions and you're satisfied with the answers, I think you've got a good shot. And if you get to question number 4 and one of you says, I'm not going to answer that, if it was an important question that you really wanted an answer to, how long are you going to hang around to figure out the answer on your own?
Well, I'm thinking, are you even going to get to the end of those questions? Are they going to stand up and leave?
Well, what I told somebody one time was, if you both get 10 answers to 10 questions, you should probably go home and have sex right then, because you're going to get along fine. But if they get up and leave, then at least you spared yourself another 4 months or 6 months of beating around the bush and learning things the hard way.
Well, and you said something interesting a minute ago. You actually help people finalize their divorce. And you said,
yeah.
You said you actually used the term, I set them free.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've made the decision that this one's not going to work. I don't go out and find people and foment unhappiness. They come to me. And I've been doing it, like I said several times, 21 years in this business, I have had one woman make an appointment and come and see me who did not go through and get the divorce. Women, by the time they call me, they're done. They just want to do the paperwork.
Well, so that kind of brings up another interesting point. Have you seen this movie, Divorce Corp?
The movie?
It's a movie. It's called Divorce Corp.
No, I don't think so.
I have not watched it yet, but I am in possession of a copy of it, and it's hard to get because they don't put very many copies out there, but it goes against the entire divorce industry. It's something like $59 billion a year.
Yeah, it's huge. Well, half the marriages in the country or more end in divorce.
Well, so when you go full-time comedy, we're going to really have a talk about what the situation is for somebody who is wanting to go through a divorce or in one or after one, that whole thing.
Sure. Most of the time that women come in, they've already vetted it with everyone that matters. They've already checked it out with their parents. They've already checked it out with their siblings, their friends, their children if they're that old. They don't need permission anymore. They've already got it from everyone whose opinion matters.
Well, most of the people I work with here in Dallas have been divorced for about 3-4 years usually. But what they tell me is they had made up their mind way before they actually got the divorce. Like 3, 4, or 5 years, they've just been sticking in there for the kids, or they're not. It's not. They don't want to be there.
Yeah, well, and I think my advice to anyone who is sticking it out for the kids, don't do that. The kids would much. I've never seen a family where the kids would not prefer that mom and dad be happy even if they were divorced, rather than together and miserable. Because I've literally had people come into my office and say, well, my kid just graduated from high school, so now I'm going to do it. And I was like, you waited? Yeah, my wife and I talked about it about 4 years ago, and we decided we'd wait till the youngest one got out of school. And I went, how awful do you think that child is going to feel now that the day you put them, in the dorm at college, you went home and got a divorce? They're going to feel horrible that you did that, like, for them. They wouldn't have wanted you to do that.
Right.
That's not a burden they would want to bear.
Probably not.
Most people stick around towards the end out of fear or economic necessity. They're either afraid of the future or they can't figure out how to make the math work. And that's especially true for the last 6 or 8 years with the economy having been really hard. People are like, we're barely getting by with the 2 car payments and the mortgage. How in the world are we going to have, 2 mortgages and 2 car payments? So
that's one of the points of the movie, in my opinion, is you've got 2 households, 2 electric bills, all that. And who is that good for? It's good for corporations, and it's good for the economy, kind of. It's not necessarily good for the individuals.
Yeah, it's not. Done well, done right, people can wind up happier than they were, and that, I have some moral and ethical dilemmas about it sometimes. I don't think anybody is obligated to stay in a relationship that makes them miserable. But I also think that marriages and families have become far too disposable in our society. So it's a tough balance to strike between, you know, not bolting at the first thing that's inconvenient or unpleasant on the one hand versus at what point do you say I can't take anymore?
Well, so are you familiar with the whole conscious uncoupling with have you heard about this?
Yeah, I forget which starlet was it that said she was doing that.
Well, it's Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris, the lead singer of Coldplay.
Yeah. I don't, you know, if you have to make up a new word for what you're doing, I'm not sure that it's real. They got divorced.
Right. Well, here's what I guess my point is, if you're going to consciously uncouple, which is very Hollywood to do, I'd really like to see people consciously couple. So that's really what I'm trying to do is go from let's go out and use our hormones and get attracted to somebody and then try to make it work versus find out exactly who I am and what I'm about and then use that to attract people and be attracted to the right people for the right reason.
Yeah, you should
build a foundation on something that matters.
Yeah, you should definitely be healthy and whole and fit, you know, on your own before you drag someone else into your mess. And you know, society changes very slowly, and I think that my advice to my sons will probably be, you are in no hurry. You know, figure out what you want to be, literally. What job do you want? Where is that going to happen? And then be very deliberate about this process. I probably once a month, maybe more, I have a new client come in, often a woman, and her story goes like this. Well, I was dating my husband in college, and we graduated, and we got married, and we had 2 children, and that was 10 years ago, and now this sucks. And they went from their father's house to their husband's house. And they skipped over the part where they got to be independent and have their own separate fun life. And they went straight from daddy's house to their husband's house in the suburbs. They're driving a minivan, they're getting thrown up on, and they're looking around going, this is not what I had in mind. And they're 32, they're 33, they're 34, and they want out. And, you know, I often wonder, what if they had not gone that path? What if they had been 28 when they finally said, let's do this? Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not necessarily advocating that you don't get married till you're 28, but you should not get married simply because it's the next apparent step in the conventional life. You know, too many people go high school, college, marriage, children, divorce. And somehow you got to think about how to not wind up in that cycle.
Well, planning would be good. Actually choosing the path, and I like how you're kind of laying it out and saying it's possible you could go that way, but I really think too many 22-year-olds get married because all the rest of their friends are and it's their turn.
Yes. I mean, how many women have I heard say, if I have to wear one more bridesmaid dress before I get married, I'm going to kill someone? Well, that's insane. You wear as many as you get invited to wear, I guess. I mean, you know, that's what I'm talking about is, you know, they were at Auburn University together and they graduated and they looked at each other and they went, well, I guess there's no more finals. Want to get married? And they do, you know.
Right. Or my parents are pressuring me and I'm done with school, and if we pool our resources,
right,
have more money together, and I wouldn't want to start over. I'm really comfortable with you. I would not like to start over with someone else, so I'm gonna, let's just do this.
Yeah. I think I would say live a little before you go there. Get out, and ironically, this is not really what I did, but in general, I think you could probably do. More people would probably wind up in more
durable, happy relationships if they took their time and became an individual that is full and complete to the extent you can be when you're 25 or 27, before they tried to do that. Growing up together is hard to do.
Yeah. You're actually doing a commercial for me right now. You know this, right?
No, I did not know that.
datingdifferently.com is my site, and it's literally finding yourself and your authenticity and getting some serious healing to the things. Usually, a lot of times they're from our childhood and they're totally unconscious, but we do them all the time. Then the next part is self-love and actually getting that right, unconditionally being able to love yourself the way your dog does.
Yeah.
And then we talk about dating strategies. Then.
Right. Yeah. Well, you should. If you're broken, someone else is not going to fix that by being present. That's kind of like as insane as sometimes I've seen people say, well, we're married and we have a kid and this sucks. You know what we should do? We should have another one.
Well, yeah, that'll make it better.
Yeah, as if that's going to improve the scenario. I've seen that happen, and or someone goes along with the other one's plan to do that. They'll say, well, I've had people tell me, well, I wasn't really happily married when we had Junior, but I figured, we should have another, and she went along with it.
So one of the processes that I go through is I get people to do their perfect average day. So if you got to wake up at what time you wanted to, you got to eat for breakfast whatever you wanted to, spend time with who you want to, work with the people you would choose if you got to choose from everything. Like, do you want to work with kids, dogs, old people? What is it you really want to do with your time? And you got to do everything you wanted to do that day. And I get them to go through that process, and then we pick out one-word values and beliefs so that we can build that for them and help them get really clear on what their beliefs and values are. If people had that, they would date differently.
I think that's a good idea. It's kind of a personal inventory. I would recommend that.
That's just one tool. We literally have it's a 30-day program is what we do, and some of the things you said on this call, I would like to see if you have some more input on that. I want to schedule another one of these, and I'm sure it'll be after your wife changes the window treatment within the next couple of weeks. So we're definitely inside the hot crazy matrix. We don't have more.
You could not be more inside.
You what?
You could not be more inside.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate the inside path here, and because we've done this with technology, now you've got some other things you might be able to go back and use from this. But I'm going to use some of this and talk to people. I'm going to keep promoting you. You were saying that you can see who has watched the video and where it's big, and Dallas is one of the big places where it's big.
Yeah. My Facebook page says that Dallas is disproportionately represented among my followers on Facebook. And when I say that, what I mean is, per capita, there's more people in Dallas than I would have thought.
And that I tried to take credit for it earlier, and I was being funny, but I really have put this thing everywhere on my social media and within groups. I have a meetup group here in Dallas. It's like 1,100 people right now. And so what we do is we get together and meet real people instead of do online dating, and go do the things that you would do on a date, but in a low-pressure situation. So it's not like every time we do something, that guy hits on me. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to do with Dating Differently, is to actually give people a place to go on a date without having it be one person and having it be, oh, is he going to kiss me? Is he going to make a move on me? Who should pay? All those problems that you have with dating.
That sounds good.
So, and it's starting to expand at this point, and that's part of the reason why I want to get you on. I think you are just at the beginning of what this thing is going to be humongous. So I wanted to give you a little more out there, as well as some other material, and I want to do another one of these calls. I'm serious about that.
I'll be happy to do that.
I know that thing's going to change over your head, or you're going to do it in another room.
I'm not sure which.
Well, so any other questions you have for me? Or I felt like I asked you a lot of questions, and we're probably way over what we said for time, but thank you again for doing this on a Friday night. This has been awesome.
Yeah, hey, no problem. I'm glad to.
And just to plug one more time, this Universal Hot Crazy Matrix, if you guys want a t-shirt from this, they are really well designed and cool. So it's hotcrazy.spinshop.com, or what's the other one, Dana?
Hotcrazymerchandise.com.
And that's just all run together?
Yeah. And you can follow. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Hot Crazy Matrix.
Yeah, if you just start typing in Hot Crazy Matrix, those 3 words into Facebook, you'll find him, and he's listed as an entertainer. I'll be syndicating this thing out, so we'll get you over 10,000 very soon.
Cool.
And anyway, again, thanks again for taking the time. And do you see this comment in the chat on the right?
No, I hadn't seen it. I do now.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
that's the unicorn for you.
Hope I didn't ruin your Friday night for you.
2 out of 3 ain't bad, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, we'll wrap this one up. I will send you a link to this video, and we'll schedule another one.
Cool, man. I look forward to it.
Thanks, Dana. Have a great night.
You bet.